Hey friends, Peter Fasciano here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome for the first time. In today's video, I'm going to go ahead and cover the APS-C holy trinity of lenses for Canon cameras. Now, before you freak out and say, oh my gosh, another lens video, I can't afford any more lenses, stick with me because I think this is going to be an affordable option for anybody that's looking to complete their lens lineup. So if this sounds like it's interesting to you, go ahead and stick around and let's go ahead and jump into today's video. All right, holy trinity of lenses. I think the term comes from, creation. If you have these three lenses, you can create everything. Holy trinity of lenses. You can create whatever it is that you want. If you're doing stills, video, or a combination of both, if you have these three lenses in your bag, you can pretty much create whatever you want, everything. So the holy trinity of lenses. So what lenses do we have? We have everything from a wide angle to a zoom. The first lens is the EFS 10-18, f4.5 to 5.6, IS STM. This gives you the wide angle stuff. Then we have a middle lens. So we have the EFS 17-55, f2.8, IS USM. Looking forward to using this lens a lot. And then the last one is our zoom, and we end up with the EFS 55 to 250, f4 to 5.6, IS STM. So those are the three lenses. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how you'd actually use each one. And just to let you guys know, I put affiliate links in the description below. So if anybody is interested in picking up any of these lenses, if you use those links in the description, I'll end up getting a small commission. It's not much, but it helps this channel out a lot. All right, first up, we have the 10-18. This is going to come in just at about around $300, but you can also pick it up renewed for about $250. After that, we end up with the most expensive one, which is about $600, the 17-55. This one, I don't think I've seen it renewed. So if you want to get the kit lens, and some of you guys might already have it, this is only about $100, $80, something like that. Then we have our telephoto zoom 55 to 250. You can get this one at about $299, $300. You can also pick this one up renewed as well for about $145. And then my plus one lens is the EF 50 millimeter 1.8. You can pick this up for about $125, and you can also find it renewed for somewhere around $120. So there you have it. All right, so now that you know the price of these and where to get them, let's go ahead and talk about the use of them. Let's start with the 10-18. Remember, this is going to be your wide angle lens. This is going to be good for landscapes, architecture, real estate, vlogging, anywhere that you need to include as much of the scene as possible. Also, keep in mind, all of these lenses, with the exception of the 50 millimeter 1.8, are all stabilized lenses. So that's going to be good for video work. Next up, we have our 17-55. This is going to be good for astrophotography on the low end, 17 millimeters at 2.8. You're going to get some good footage on that one. At the high end, 55, we're looking at portraits. We're looking at those medium shots. We're also looking at talking head videos. This is going to be a good all-around B-roll lens where you want to kind of capture some additional information. Image stabilized as well. Then we move on to our telephoto zoom, 55 to 250. This is obviously going to be a telephoto zoom lens where you can't get close to your subject. This is a good wildlife lens, sporting lens, possibly landscapes, maybe even at the lower end talking head if you're a little bit back a little bit. But the image quality on this one, you would think that it would not be that great, but I think the clarity of this lens is probably one of the better inexpensive telephoto zooms. So that's also a plus. And then the last thing we have is the Canon 50 millimeter 1.8. So just in case you really want to get that blurry background and you don't want to spend $2,000 on a lens, this is a great portrait lens. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll in here all of the different focal lengths. So we're going to go ahead and start with just a regular scene, and I'm just going to zoom in as we go. So now you're taking a look at the 10-18, the focal length on here, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Now moving on to the 17 to 55. Now you're looking at the 17, 20, 28, 35, 55. Moving on to the 55 to 250, we're starting out with 55 millimeters, then 70, 100, 135, 200, 250. And the last thing I wanted to show you is just a quick portrait with just kind of a busy background and show you what the 50 millimeter 1.8 looks like as far as bokeh goes. So it's important to note that all of these lenses, with the exception of the 17 to 55, are all variable aperture lenses, which means as you zoom in, your aperture is going to change. So let's say I have the 55 to 250. At 55 millimeters, the aperture is at its widest at 4.0. And as I zoom into 250, the aperture eventually is going to narrow down to its smallest, which is 5.6. So if you're looking to get these blurry backgrounds, this is where the compromise is. You're not going to get them with all of these lenses. So you have to think, is it enough to not have those blurry backgrounds, or are you going to pay to get those? And there's always some workarounds. If you're paying attention to your subject, try to get as close to your subject as possible and separate them from the background, which will achieve an artificial, well, it's not artificial, it'll give you a blurry background, but you're not always going to be able to get close to your subject, and you're not always going to be able to remove your subject from the background. So again, that's the price that you have to pay and the compromise that you have to make without spending thousands of dollars on lenses to get those wide open apertures of 1.8, 2.8. And even with these three lenses, the most expensive lens that I have, the 17 to 55, has a 2.8 aperture, and it's not a variable aperture. It's 2.8 all the way through 17 to 55. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and backtrack a little bit and talk about Canon sensor sizes. So right now I'm shooting with the M6 Mark II. It's a APS-C crop sensor camera, which means compared to a full frame camera, there is an additional crop. It basically just crops in on the sensor 1.6 times. So whatever it is that you're shooting with, if you want to know the full frame equivalent, you basically just multiply the focal length of the lens by 1.6 and it'll give you the full frame equivalent. And this is one of the most attractive things with these three lenses that drew me to the APS-C sensors. So the 10 to 18 goes full frame equivalent 16 to 28. The 17 to 55 gives me a full frame equivalent 27 to 88. And the 55 to 250 gives me 88 to 400. So I'm looking at a focal range of 16 all the way to 400. And if you compare that to a full frame camera, so let's say for instance you have the Canon RP, if you have a full frame camera and you have the the Trinity of lenses, you're looking at the 16 to 35, 24 to 70, 70 to 200. That only gives you 16 to 200. So I'd much rather have the wide variety of focal lengths than be narrowed down to that, along with the price. 16 to 35 is a $2,000 lens, the 2.8. The EF 2.8, $2,000. If you go for a Sigma like a third party, you're still looking at the 12 to 24, you're looking at $1,500. And even if you go with the EF F4s, those are still $1,000 just for one lens. And with that amount of money, you can get all three lenses plus the Canon EF 50mm 1.8. So you can actually get 4 lenses for the price of one of the other expensive lenses. And I don't need that. I mean, what I have right here is good enough, and good enough is good enough for what I do. So there's no reason to spend an exorbitant amount of money to just feel like a professional. So, and the APS-C sensors are any of the Canon cameras, the M200, the M50, M50 Mark II, the M5, M6, M6 Mark II. The EFS lenses will also work with your DSLRs. So any of the Rebel series, the 90D, 80D, 7D, all those are crop sensors and they'll work with these lenses. The M series, you can also pick up the Trinity of lenses, but I'm not investing in the M series glass. I mean, if you guys saw my videos from before, I'm not really positive that the M series cameras are going to be, viable here in the near future. If the rumors are correct, Canon's coming out with an RF APS-C mount camera, and all of these lenses that I have will work with that camera along with the M6 Mark II with the adapter. So I don't want to have to pigeonhole myself in the M series by getting M series glass. But if you do and you want the Trinity of lenses, by all means go out and grab it. You can get the 11 to 22, the 18 to 55, and the 55 to 200 for right around $1,000 as well. All right, you guys, so that's where I'm going to leave it for today. If you're not a subscriber to the channel and you guys got value out of this, consider subscribing. Just go and click on that little subscribe button, turn on the bell notification, share this with somebody, give me a thumbs up. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.